Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is the Apocalypse Nerd coming to you live for the 10th episode of Podcast Act Round Zero. And number 10, yay, we've made it to double digits.
We've run out of fingers. We'll have to move. We'll have to take off our shoes if we're going to have any more episodes.
Well, unless you're mutants, then we could probably go one more at least.
Oh, good point. Sadly, not enough mutants.
Not enough mutants. That is, of course, Adam Scott Glancy from Pagan Publishing, and joining us again this week, co-host is Michael Forhola, the publisher of, or the
owner-operator of...
Owner-operator, man, I got it all right. The King of Siam, everybody! Michael Forhola, owner-operator of Skirmisher Publishing, and the publisher of D-Infinity Live magazine. We're having Mike on for this today because he does, again, apocalyptic gaming, and it's going to be relative and relevant, and it's been a long week, and it's only Monday to gaming. So tonight we are going to talk about my absolute favorite role-playing game of all time, Gamma World. Yay! So this will probably be one of many episodes related to Gamma World because there's just so much to talk about.
So strap in, kids.
Yeah,
you're gonna get a lot of Gamma World.
Yeah, we're gonna get a lot of run out of this because even I would like to try in the future is maybe see if we could get Mr. James Ward somehow on here. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if you would do it, but I would like to reach out and try. So, all right. So I'm gonna kind of skip the news this week because again I really don't have anything.
I got one thing.
Oh, go ahead.
I got suckered into, well, I shouldn't say suckered, but I got suckered into downloading through my Xbox State of Decay. And so far I've only put about 30 minutes to an hour into it. But State of Decay is not terrible. State of Decay has more promise than most zombie games. It's kind of interestingly primitive. It seems they've done a pretty good job. The animation is sometimes primitive with characters wandering through each other and problems using the perspective on the camera, but the world seems fairly interesting so far. And, combat is clumsy. You're not a god just hacking your way through zombies. Your weapons wear out. Your ammo wears out. Your vehicles...
Then why would I want to play it if I'm not a god?
Yeah, exactly. You really... You can't just Rambo your way through it, which I kind of appreciate. You have to be sneaky. You have to choose your battles. It's tough.
Yeah, because I got it as well. So I played a little bit too, and everything Scott said about it, it's true. It's very, it's more, more grounded, I would say. For lack of a better term on that.
And I really like that you can switch between characters. That was a nice touch.
Oh yeah, different characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty good game. State of Decay. Which also reminds me of, Xbox had a free rental. Okay, I guess I do got something. It had a free rental like 2 weeks ago. State of Emergency, 2011, a weak Crazies clone movie.
Okay.
It was okay for what it was. There was a couple of interesting little twists, but it was free. If you can see it for free, go ahead and see it. It's chemical explosion. People are crazy. A couple of characters. There was one really good line in the movie. I don't remember it exactly, but it was something to the effect of, because there's a couple survivors, married couple, and the guy's like, it's the apocalypse and you still got to be doing chores.
Nothing's going to change that shit.
Nothing's going to change that shit.
That's not changing.
There's actually been a number of foreign entries in the whole post-apocalyptic genre. And some are better than others. These European, German, and Spanish, and French post-apocalyptic movies tend to be a lot more low-key than American ones. But some of them aren't that bad. They're worth a one-time watch. And if you've got Netflix anyway, there's one I watched recently called Extinction.
I've heard of that. I want to check that out.
So that's worth a watch because if there is a certain cultural dynamic to this genre, And, as Americans, we tend to have certain fundamental assumptions about what the apocalypse means. And actually, it's kind of cool to see what Asians or Europeans, what their spin on the apocalypse is. So, for anyone who's on Netflix, I would encourage looking for Extinction and any of these other movies, because they're coming out at a pretty, steady clip these days.
Well, like me and Scott have talked about in the past about different post-apocalyptic novels to like different perspectives of the apocalypse. So
it's really easy to find American and English. In English, the Brits seem to have a thriving post-apocalyptic, genre. But the one the only taste we got of the Russians was Metro 2033, and it was great. It was great to get that because I always wanted to know what was going through Ivan's head. But it's tough finding anything outside of that that's been translated into English, especially.
Yeah. Now, going back 50 years, I mean, do you consider something like On the Beach to be a legitimate post-apocalyptic movie? I mean, they're not killing zombies in it. It's pretty morose, but...
Well, okay, Mike, the apocalypse isn't just about zombies. That's that is just one subgenre.
Hey, but brought up On the Beach.
The idea that, but it's a best post-apocalypse shows you how your everyday life changes after things go bad. It's not just an action movie or it's not a series of actions.
Right. I agree with you.
The best stuff is the survivors from England. Hell, the thing that's cool about State of Decay is how much time you got to spend looking for the supplies so your little community of 8 people or 6 people or whatever can make it through the next week.
Right. Speaking of Terror Nation survivors, I guess I'm coming up with things. Terror Nation Survivor is being adapted as an audio book story by Big Fish Productions, who does a lot of Doctor Who and does Blake 7. They're doing Survivors.
Oh, is Big Fish the guys here in Seattle that make all the video games, the Game a Day company?
Maybe it's not Big Fish. It's Big. I can't remember the top of my head, but they do a lot of Doctor Who.
Now, I'll look it up and see if I can find out something while you're telling some more news.
Yeah. So it's and they're doing Terror Nations. The first, basically based on the TV series. So there's going to be multiple series. The first one's going to be coming out like June of next year. So 2014. A lot of the original cast. So they're doing like a radio play type adaptation of it. So it's pretty interesting. So that's coming out, and. The only other thing that I saw was they've released a couple of, not really gameplay trailers, but some trailers for the Mad Max game that's coming out next year.
Big Finish.
Big Finish, not Big
Finish.
Big Finish coming out with Terror Nations Survivors audio, so that should be good. Mad Max the video game coming out next year. There's been a couple of.
Cool.
It's looking good so far, but we'll see what happens. I also thought Aliens was going to be really fucking cool, but
there was a couple of days there where you're like, look, it's okay for what it is, and then finally you're like, no, this is ass.
I can't finish it.
I've got a big bowl of ass and I can't finish it. Screw you cheap bastards.
Exactly. So no, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about that now, Mike. We've talked about it a little bit.
I didn't want to bring it up.
Well, when we talk more about zombies, we'll talk about it. But let's talk about Gamma World. 1978, James Ward came out by TSR, which was the second post-apocalyptic game that he had put out. The first one being Metamorphosis Alpha, which came out like 2 years before. 2 or 3 years, I think 75 or 76. I can't remember off the top of my head. Basically, it took Metamorphosis Alpha, which was apocalypse in space, which we talked about before, on a generation ship. Now we put it on the Earth. So they developed and changed that, and we have Breakout. My original box set. I've had this since about 1982.
I'm sorry.
Original box set.
That's your set from '82?
Amazing.
How is that still intact, dude?
It is.
I played mine until it collapsed.
Well, look. There's
tape
on the corners holding.
Okay, that's
together.
better. I feel better. I feel less like a Vandal or a Visigoth who can't.
The fuzziness of his image is helping him with this. It's like old actress syndrome. There's on the lens.
Well, I mean, Well, here's the rule book, and you can see how beat up and worn this.
Yeah.
Trust me, this thing traveled many back pockets and traveled around. You know,
I always loved that cover
wrong,
image, by the way. I think that cover image was great. I remember seeing that in advertising, the old White Dwarf magazine and Dragon. I always thought that was really
Dave Trampier. I wish he didn't disappear from the art world, because he did. He just totally pulled out.
Who was that? Who did that?
He got a little. David Trampier.
Ah, okay. Oh, Tramp. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Tramp did a lot. He disappeared.
The rumor last time anyone ever saw him, he was driving a cab in India or something.
Yeah, because he got screwed over, wanted nothing to do with it. It's such a shame because he has such beautiful work, you know. And look here's on my box. Okay, I was mapping out. There's the Gamma World Module and Dragon Magazine 52 Cavern of the Subtrain. I was trying to map out the substation control room. So
that was out of Dragon Magazine.
Yep.
That was the first adventure I ever played in for Gamma World.
Nice.
The first one I ever played. That was 1982.
Yep. I still got characters in here. I got all kinds of shit. So anyways, this is one of the first games. I originally played D&D. I think once, and then next I started playing Gamma World. It was just a random thing. A friend of mine with my cousin, we played. Albuquerque Spaceport was the first adventure I played.
Oh, that one was always hard.
Yeah,
that was one that was geared for a total party kill.
Oh yeah, but that was my first experience, and I loved the game ever since. So I just kept on playing it. We had ongoing campaigns. And speaking of Dave Trampier's work, I'm gonna have to flip my camera, take my camera off, and move around here. It's backwards, everybody, because the camera's backwards. But this right up here.
No, it's looking forward. I'm seeing Gamma World is here, baby.
Yeah, that's good.
That poster was TSR printed as a promotional poster originally in 1978, 79, and sold it at Gen Con. And actually, I found out there's actually multiple printings of that, because that printing originally has the lizard logo from TSR, which is the original logo. There's ones with the Wizards logo. But anyway, that poster is rare, hard to get. I wound up lucking out. Scott remembers when I was doing this. I got this for about $110 on eBay. I've seen them occasionally on eBay. I've seen it go for $300, $400, $500. It's crazy how rare it is. Even the guys at the Gen Con auction have talked about how I've seen a couple of those come through over the years. So, but that's my pride and joy. That poster. It's right above my desk. I look at it all the time. That is dry mounted, framed with preservation archival glass so it doesn't fade. I spent a lot of money framing that fucking thing. So that's
more money than on the poster.
Probably.
You say dry mounted? I thought this was a family show.
It is a family show. There's more than just kids. It's families, Mike. So so Gamma World.
Don't make us bring up Buck Naked.
All right? Buck Naked. Right? Now Gamma World is kind of the original setting was a kind of that 50s kind of futuristic. A lot of people call Gamma World, they said it was wahoo. They said it was very over the top, very silly, ridiculous. It can be like any game if you want it to be. Yeah. It lends to it.
Certainly as written. I mean, and our evidence for that, oops.
But you know what? They're not, because they portrayed them as being silly, but really, come on, 9-foot-tall rabbits that could transform your metal. Oh, gee, so wizards all right, look,
I am not saying it's less dumb than a rust monster with a propeller on its tail. Okay, I'm just saying that when the hoops turned up in my campaigns, I was like, you know what, this metal turned into rubber thing, I'm ignoring it. They're just big, crazy, anthropomorphized rabbits. I can't go with the crazy mutation. Not the least of which because, for some reason, that was not a mutation you could roll on the random mutation table.
Nope. Exactly.
What a ripoff that is.
So the game is, considered is pretty silly, but again, it's got that kind of 50s future. It's got ray guns and space cars. But they do paint a good picture of because it took place far in the future, and then it was after the future. Far past that, like 150 years after, the apocalypse. So the Earth had advanced, to where they have ray guns and robots, cybernetic installations, think tanks, cyborgs, all high tech. Buck Rogers kind of.
But remember, it's Buck Rogers high tech. It is not the high tech we're living in now.
No.
It's the high tech from 30 years ago and more.
The high tech of an analog world.
Yes. Computers are still giant. Nobody's got Google glasses in the in Gamma world. There's no nanotechnology.
Not until 6th edition, but that's
but the charm of the original one is it's this crazy solid state electronics sort of future. At
the time, it was befitting. It made sense at the time. It didn't even now.
It's 50s radiation.
Yeah,
it's 50s radiation. You get radiation on you, you either become a superhero, or a threat to civilization, as opposed to your lymph nodes swell up and you shit your liver. Which is what happens when you get radiation.
In real life, right?
Yeah.
But I prefer the Gamma world version of radiation. Yeah.
But it was like out of The Thing, not The Thing, Them with the giant ants, or The Incredible Colossal Man.
Radiation has made me a menace. This is a enemy of society.
Yeah, that's right. It was that kind of radiation. So, and plus very, very comic book radiation. There was one. There was one of the fulcrums of the game was this idea of so-called cryptic alliances or secret societies that exist after the apocalypse. And the one that came out, there's one that came out in Dragon magazine, as a list of minor secret societies. And the one that made the most sense to me, considering the mutations in the game, which are like, I have laser eyes, I have wings, I can breathe underwater, I have a force field, I'm invisible. The secret society I love was the ones that had found a comic book store.
Yep.
And determined that comic books were like a Bible, a way of life. That, if you have mutations, you have to get a silly costume with a cape and go out and save people, or fight the good fight, or fight for truth, justice, and the Murrigan way, or whatever they called Murriga at the time. Yeah, and I thought that was the mutant powers. The mutations are very much like something out of a comic book from the Golden Age.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, they got the cryptic alliances, they got the powers. Now mutation, like I said, you had your pure strain humans, which are the regular humans, but they're superhumans because of advances in medicine. You had mutants. You had I don't think in the first edition you had mutated animals as player character choices.
Oh, I think they did, because I remember people rolling up plants.
Well, no, plants and mammals, like animals, are different. I'm talking, it was just, no, they did have mutated animals. I stand corrected.
Okay.
For some reason, I didn't think they had that. But they also had choices for mutated plants. Now, mutated plants as characters is where I draw the fucking line. Okay, my Gamma World campaigns we did not have mutated plants as characters because we thought the idea was stupid. We did not. But a lot of people are like, oh, it's great because it has plants. No, it's dumb. Okay, I can see mutated animals, the mutations, the radiation. We didn't play with mutated animals as player characters. We didn't allow it. We didn't have it. But people could. It made sense. But plants, no way. They were encounters. They were monsters. They were not player characters. Because playing, look, I'm a cactus. Wheel me around. It's so dumb.
Well. In fact, now that you said cactus, wasn't there an AB3, an Al Bruno III thing about playing Gamma World?
Yes, I believe there was.
Where one of the characters takes a cactus as his character.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I got multiple limbs, so my cactus will walk around on his penises or something. It was his brilliant decision.
And actually, you're old school, Jared, and so am I. But I recognize that there's this trend in gaming, and we saw it with D&D/D20. So in the D20 system, where there's this idea that we want to have a system that can accommodate playing anything that a player would want to play or a DM would find appropriate for his or her game. So yeah, I could see very well why you wouldn't want to have plant player characters and why you would want to draw the line there and why you would ridicule it. But the idea that you would have a system that could accommodate that or anything else, anything that you would throw against people as a monster, having a system, a graded system whereby someone could also play that as a character, I think that says something about the system as much as it does about people's individual tastes. And frankly, I like that.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mike. Let me ask you one question, because I am not familiar with the latest editions of D&D. Once upon a time, we had our list of races that we could play, and certainly, coming out of TSR, Gamma World was sort of built the same way. Here's the races you can play. It didn't have character classes, which is one thing I liked very much about Gamma World.
Yes. Right. Until 4th edition, then they started having character classes. But
when it originally came out, there were no character classes. Nope. The one thing I do remember that was odd is that there wasn't any way that I don't remember any way to acquire experience points.
It was very minor and in the back.
Yeah, okay. So you could get better at your attacks and things if you.
Yeah, real base stuff.
Okay, but are you saying now that this latest editions of D&D actually have options for? I want to play a lizard man character. I want to play a hobgoblin. I want to play, a sea ghoul.
Let me answer that question the best way that I can answer it. All right. When you say the latest editions of D&D, if you're talking about 5th edition D&D, honestly, I cannot answer that because I don't play, or not 5th edition. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. That's the one in development now. 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. I've played that a couple of times. I got handed a character. It's something that Skirmisher has a license to publish for, and we have a couple of authors that write material for it. What you can and can't play in it, I really don't know because I don't play it as a game. So the games
because it's a miniatures game now. So
yeah, it's a miniatures game. So I don't know what you can do with it, Scott. But the game that I develop right now is D20 3.5. We still publish a lot of 3.5 material, and then Pathfinder material is very, very popular. Pathfinder material,
extremely popular. Pathfinder,
which some people dub D&D 3.75, is a third-party system that's more popular than D&D 4th edition. And in those systems, you can in fact play a lizard man or a vegapygmy or anything that is available as a monster. When you look on the monster,
hold on, did you say a vegapygmy?
Wait, wasn't that from Expedition to Barrier Peaks?
Yeah, I threw that in because it's a plant monster and it's from Expedition to the Barrier Peaks.
Oh my God!
But Scott, at the end of every monster stat block in Pathfinder or in OGL 3.5, at the very end of the monster stat block, it says Vegapygmy or Lizard Man or Rust monsters as player characters. It says that right at the end, and then it tells you what you need to do to play that monster as a player character. And now, if everybody's playing some weird-ass monster, is that going to be a good game? Is that going to be a fun game? Is that going to be compelling? I would say not. I'd say
maybe for a one-shot, but for long-term,
one-shot.
No.
But could you have an ongoing campaign where one of the characters was in fact a lizard man? Yeah, we did that in my D&D game. My dad played a lizard man, and we were able to come up with all sorts of feats in the building.
I bring up lizard man. I bring up lizard man because I'm not mistaken. There was a list of pre-generated characters in the back of one of the old D&D books. I don't remember which one it was from Advanced D&D, where they had a character who was killed and they couldn't get him to a cleric to resurrect him, so they got him to they brought him back as they went and took him to a druid, and the only spell was reincarnate, and he randomly got Lizard Man, which I thought was
in the classic fantasy novel Quad Keep, which you all might be familiar with. One of the characters in the party in Quad Keep is in fact a lizard man. That goes back 40 years. So yeah, in the current editions of the game that people are playing, maybe not the most current official incarnation of the game, but the actual incarnations of the game people are playing, you can effectively play anything as a player character.
Backing up slightly to Gamma World, the one thing I want to throw out the difference is Gamma World had just a bestiary in the back that was clearly written on acid. I mean, it was all over the place. There are some brilliant things in there. My favorite being the mobile cactus that is used as a desert mount. There was some mobile cactus that was like a plant that moved along, and people would have these specialized saddles, and they'd strap stuff to them. They were like the camels of the desert, you know.
Oh yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
I mean, there was things like the centistede, which is the horse with too many fucking legs,
or pod dogs, you know.
Yeah, or the dogs that are big enough to ride. There's a number of amusing steeds. But the one that I always really liked was the damn cactus from the desert.
Yeah,
anyway,
I can't remember what it is. But look, see, look, see, Scott, look, the pages are coming out. Are you happy now? See, it's very well worn, but
I am happy now. Now I was going to say that bestiary, despite the fact it was very extensive, and it was had all kinds of stuff all over the place. The rules didn't really give you an opportunity to play any of the creatures from the bestiary, which I thought was a kind of a bummer. That you couldn't go, okay, I'm going to take, whatever the rabbit, the hoops, or one of the other mutant species, the Orleans, or the serfs, and I'm going to play a serf character. I'll just take that.
Well, if you had again, rules are meant to be guidelines, and of course, if you had a creative DM, you could have played wherever you want to. But again, the rules did. I see the rules did not lend to it. It was you're a human, you're a mutant, you're a mutated animal. You're Napoleon, the mutated bear who runs the ranks of the thick. So Gamma World. Again, the first scene is a bit of a joke, a bit of wahoo. Again, it all depends on how you played it. We played it more serious. We had a serious take to it. I mean, it wasn't a hard science serious, but we took it serious and played it serious. That's why we didn't have plant characters.
Well, that's because it was the only. It was the only option for playing something that wasn't fantasy at the time.
Yeah, well, it's really not. It's not a science fiction game. It is really a science fantasy game. But people think it's lighthearted. But let me read a little bit just from Dragon Magazine 156. There was an article by Roger Moore. He was a big TSR guy back in the day. Okay, and he wrote an article talking about fear is good, because people think Gamma World's a big joke and the monsters and squishy things and things like that. So, but he talked about how back when he was in the army, like his characters. The players didn't take Gamma World seriously, how deadly the world really is. Because again, it's not a game where you accumulate hit points from levels. Here's your hit points. That's it. You don't get any more. So healing's slow. There's no magic. So he wanted to show a point of how deadly things are, like death machines. Okay. So he waylaid his players when he was in the army. He told everybody, pick your favorite deity from the AD&D game, because again, the systems were compatible at the time. Anything.
Right. They were basic system.
Yeah, anything from Monster Manual, anything from Deities and Demigods. Pick your favorite, most powerful god or deity, whatever you want to have. So they all basically played all their gods, super monsters, and they met on a desert plain to meet their opponents because there was going to be a big fight. And he says. Quote, this is from reading from the article, suddenly a huge space-time warp opened up in front of the incredible assembly. And out of the alien warp came 3 brand new, fully armed, fully powered death machines on random programming. 2 gods died in the first 10 seconds of combat, each taking over 700 points of damage. A 3rd god died before the minute-long fight was over, and two gods, including Demigorgon, fled the battle in other pen. Okay? All the rest of the deities were pounded with atomic missiles, lasers, bombs, rockets, shells, bullets, force fields, and death rays. Thor bent the nose of one death machine with Molzner, but he took a nuke in return. Okay? And he did say that if he had not used random attacks on it, all the gods would have died in 30 seconds.
So all the attacks were randomly directed as opposed to strategically or tactically directed.
Yes.
By an intelligent source.
Yes. So he goes on to say that none of his players in Gamma World games have ever thereafter stayed within sight and distance of a death machine. Okay. So he was just trying to prove the point that the game really was deadly and how much damage these things could. You got to be careful. So I just always like that analogy. I mean, it's a whole little article because he's talking about James Ward and his character in his where he said, he says that James Ward's had he's playing his games where like a fleet of death machines is taken out by a field of mutated crabgrass, so, so he's just trying to say that, fear, it's good to have fear in a campaign, it's a Transit Call Cthulhu, different games like that, and he tried to show them that, hey, you know what, this world's not a joke, you got to be careful. So I always like that story about the game. So Gamworld, again, favorite game, because again, I read a lot of apocalyptic stories when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed the environment, the game master I played with. There's been 7 editions. The game's been around for 35 years. There's been 7 editions of the game. The most recent one just coming out, what was it, 2 years ago?
Pull out a couple of copies of the, so you can flash the cover art for the other editions, please.
Yeah, 2010 was, here's the latest edition, this steaming abortion of a game, okay?
I'm not really sure why they're calling it a role-playing game, because it feels like it's a card game.
It is. Well, we'll get into that later. But, because it's with the 4th edition rules. Now, we had 1st edition, 2nd edition. I'm a 1st, 2nd edition kind of guy. This one came out a couple years later.
Yeah, 2nd edition is the one that I was in love with. That was, yeah. I mean, 1st edition was good, but that 2nd edition...
Worked some bugs out.
They refined it a little more, worked some more stuff, gave a little more structure to the game.
Color! It's in color! Your map of post-apocalyptic America is in color.
Welcome to the 20th century!
Yeah, oh, you know what? I might be able to find your... Hold on. Where is his cactus steed? Hold on.
Because there's illustrations of the monsters in 2nd edition. 1st edition was just a paragraph.
I think it's
there. It is. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Wow.
What the hell is it called?
What's it called?
Pine toes. It's a horse cacti.
Yeah.
This mutated thornbush is neither a horse nor is it a type of cactus. Anyway, so that's a 2nd edition, which is very close to the 3rd. We always kind of played a bit of a hybrid of 1st, 2nd edition. 3rd edition came out. Number like 80, I believe, 86 it came out.
Oh, yeah.
This one had all kinds of charts, because I think it was basing its system. They changed the system around. It was based more of like the Marvel superheroes rule set, I believe, because I think that's the one that had the charts. Like it had all these charts for determining things. It was way overcomplicated. It didn't need to be like that.
Yeah. And I was a little annoyed that it suckered me in with that beautiful cover.
Oh yeah.
And when it came to like going back and buying all the old, finding all the old Gamworld stuff on eBay, I went and tracked down all the 1st edition, 2nd edition stuff. But oh boy, I don't think I bought anything from 3rd edition.
Well, I have everything Gamworld because that's what I have to do.
Because that's who you are.
That's who I am. So, there was that. That was
all. 4th was the alternative stuff, right?
No. 4th was... I don't know where the fuck my copy of 4th edition is. I thought I got it out. 4th edition came out in 91. 4th edition was had more similarity to 1st, 2nd edition rules. And actually, 4th edition Gamworld is kind of the precursor to the whole D20 system. Because if you look at it, you look at the rules, it was like the very... it was like proto D20. System. Mm-hmm. It was the very early stages of it. So that's where I think the D20 system eventually stemmed off of. This was back in like 91.
And as Scott pointed out, there's a connection there with the Alternity system, because that would have morphed then 5 years later into Alternity, and Alternity then is what they used as the direct jumping off point for D20.
Yeah. So so the 4th edition was good. It was very interchangeable with 1st and 2nd edition. They added some classes to it. They tried to give it a little more structure. 5th edition came out in the late 90s, and it used the Alternity system, but it came out right when Alternity was dying, so nothing ever came out with it.
Alternity didn't last real long.
Yeah, so that came out right at the end, and there was no... Now, the 4th edition tried to take a little more seriousness to the campaigns. They got a bit... The 1st edition, okay, let's explain here.
Right.
First edition had like 3 adventures that came out. Very random, traditional D&D style modules. Right. That was it, They came out with a couple of modules. 2nd edition continued the tradition with some modules. 1st edition had the Legion of Gold. It had Famine and Fargo. It had Albuquerque Spaceport. Second edition came out. It had 2 additional modules. It had the Cleansing Wars of Great Blackhand and the Mind Masters. Okay, again, very D&D style modules. There was actually supposed to be a 5th GW5 module called
Rapture of the Deep.
Thank you, Rapture of the Deep, which was rumored to have been in development, but I actually emailed James Ward about this a number of years ago. He goes, to his knowledge, nothing ever came out of it. It was nothing was ever written for it.
Yeah, we ought to publish one. We ought to do it.
Well, it's been
published for
Well, actually, there's a fan-based module, Rapture of the Deep, which came out. There's a Yahoo group, Gamworld Yahoo group, that's been around since about '99. It's pretty big. There's a lot of people on it, and it was a fan-made GW5. Now, I had problems with that module because of this. Now, besides the games, besides the modules, there was content and articles wrote for Dragon Magazine. Also, James Ward wrote articles for it in Polyhedron magazine. Okay, so anything that James Ward would have written, I consider part of the canon.
That's canon, right?
Yeah, that's total canon.
Exactly, I agree.
Now, things that they said in the fan-based Rapture of the Deep contradicted stuff that was said in some of the content that he wrote, because he wrote about cryptic alliances. He wrote this whole series about cryptic alliances in the Polyhedron magazine. So a lot of it countered it. So I was kind of like, well, no, because this, and that. But it was a great effort.
I'll lay odds that the big problem there is those guys never had that article.
Yeah.
They never had access to it.
Oh yeah. Well, I got it all in the closet. But you know, but there was besides Polyhedron, Dragon magazine, Different Worlds magazine had some content. Ares magazine had some articles. Yeah. There was a couple of Australian magazines. There was Australian Realms Fantasy magazine had some articles. Okay, so there's been a lot of shit that's been put out there, and I've spent a good time tracking it down. I even have 2 modules that were put out for MassCon Fusion 1984 competition modules that people have put out there. Okay,
wow.
that were con modules. So first and second edition, again, were very, very D&D. Here's your rules. Here's some modules. Okay. Third edition tried to take a little more structure to it and have like a module be in a series. Like they had this whole arcing campaign of like 5 or 6 modules that was a long-term campaign.
Actually, I have those. I was about to say, I actually have some of those 3rd edition campaigns and games. But I don't have the 3rd edition rules. I just have the modules.
Yep, and it ended in GW10 Epsilon Cyborgs. A lot of this was put up by Kim Eastland, but they never came out with G11, which was supposed to be the closing of the arc because they dropped the edition like they always do. So
yeah.
4th edition, I think, kind of picked up the editions again to try to be more comprehensive, because that was, I think, at the time that Forgotten Realms was starting to come out with a lot of stuff and give you world settings and giving you a lot of base to base your adventures on. So they tried to do that with 4th edition. They came out with the Overlord of Bompar, which is a whole campaign setting in like the Midwest, and it gave all the politics, and they came out with a bunch of modules for it, and they came out with a bunch of different resources for it. So that was pretty cool. They came out with a bunch of different resources like Treasures of the Ancients, Gamma Knights. Gamma Knights was a board game, but that was also your source for all the information for power armor. So they kind of separated things out a little bit, kind of like they did with D&D back then. So 4th edition was pretty good.
Part of that, I think, was definitely a desire to want you to buy everything.
Yeah.
So if you have all of your power armor rules in the main booklet, why do you need this Gamma Knights thing? Oh, wait, you need it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was that. And again, they tried to be a little more comprehensive, a little more worldly. Alternative tried to be a little more serious and gritty. Any kind of campaign setting they described took place in Seattle. So, but again, nothing much came out of that. Now,
excuse me, that's the city of Saddle.
Saddle, thank you.
Saddle, S-A-D-D-L-E, Saddle.
Now, after that, it was a number of years, but then White Wolf came out with the 6th edition of the rules.
Which is pretty. You can't take the pretty away.
It was multiple books, Game Master's Guide. I mean, there's a lot of good resources that they had there, and it was with the D20 system. Now, again, as I said before, I am not a big fan of the D20 system because I just don't care for it. Yes, I have played it for quite some time. I just don't care for it. Now, what they did with this setting, which I did not like, was they tried to be science. They tried to be real. They got too hard science with it to where there was no mutation. There was no mutations.
Yeah.
No radiation. There's no mutations in it. It was all nanotechnology. Did everything. Which you know what? At the time, I guess makes sense because that's when all that stuff in the mid-aughts was starting to be more prevalent in the mindset of people.
Nanotechnology became the fucking hand-waving thing that every writer does when he wants something fucking magical to happen, but he has absolutely no technological way. He doesn't understand physics or medical technology or genetics, so it just goes, nanites, and that's
what I fall back on. Exactly.
Yeah. And so instead of the magic of radiation, to make Peter,
point, Scott. It's a good point.
To make Peter Parker into Spider-Man, instead of the magic of radiation, it's the magic of nanites.
Yeah. So it wasn't a very good addition. I mean, but they tried. Didn't care for it. But then they came out with, like I said, the abomination that was not even. It wasn't Sam. It was D&D Gamma World role-playing game. It's not Gamma World. It's D&D Gamma World.
You're holding it sideways.
This thing is based. This thing is based on the 4th edition D&D rules, which again I've never played, but I've had them described to me at length, and boy does it blow. Okay, because they really are trying to get the. They were really trying to get the game. They were trying to get the computer game across. Like, look, it's like playing. It's like playing World of Warcraft.
Except it's not.
This is 4th edition D&D, though. So they both grew out of that same phenomena. Role-playing's dying. We need to market to the kids that are playing the video games. And basically creating an abomination that might have a right to exist, but should not bear the name of the original game that it bears.
Thank you. So that's what they did with this, because basically 4th edition D&D is a miniature game. You're like, no, it's not. It's like every game, every module I've ever seen for this is based on. You have to have a map. You can't do combat without a grid map because of all the complexities of, what's square, what hexagon, what degree. You can't do it. And it's like, look, here's a new module for you. It's a bunch of maps. There's no substance. It's all combat to combat to combat.
Right.
Followed by combat with some combat, on the side.
Yeah.
And then maybe a combat chaser.
Now, of course... thank you, Scott. But of course, people will say, "Whoa, it's not the rules that dictate how the game is played." Yes, it is. Okay?
Now, wait a minute. You're contradicting yourself a little bit insofar as, but I'm not going to say rules, but I'm going to say mechanics. Okay.
Mechanics.
Sure.
Yeah,
mechanics
accommodate a play style.
Yes.
Yeah. Mechanics dictate playstyle.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, well, it doesn't matter what the rules are. You can play however you want.
Right.
But then why did you buy this particular rule set?
And why are the rules written like that? The vast majority of the people who are introduced to a game are going to play it according to the way the rules were written.
Yes. Yes, you can change. It's like, but if you're going to change it so much and play by your own rules, make your own damn game. Now, but you're buying the rules for a reason.
Now it bears mentioning, now that we've gotten to the end of talking about the various editions, it bears mentioning the retro clone versions of the game that are now available.
Yes, that when people went out and decided they're going to make something like Gamma World, they didn't stray too far from second edition and first edition.
They did not. So there is, in fact, a company called Goblinoid Games. They do a game called Mutant Future, which is a retro clone, a retro-devised version of Gamma World using open source documents, and it looks very much like a cross between first and second edition Gamma World. It's like the game that you sort of hit upon, Jared. You know, a hybrid of those two early editions. It's actually a great game. It's a lot of fun. It can be played as gritty or as whimsical as you want. And if anyone's interested in checking it out, Goblinoid Games has a free graphics-free downloadable version of it on DriveThruRPG. So people can actually download a copy of that for free.
Oh yeah, isn't there like a free gazetteer of the world where you can for Mutant Future where there's like a a big primer on?
I don't know. I will say that Skirmisher Publishing and D-Infinity Magazine, that we publish a lot for Mutant Future. We have a license to publish for it. It's sort of a subsidiary license to the D20 license by a circuitous method. So, here's a recent copy of D-Infinity Magazine, and every issue we have a couple of articles that are Mutant Future articles, which read like early Gamma World articles. And in this one, in fact, we have an entire adventure. There's an entire adventure in this magazine set in the ruins of a mall, of all places, culminating in the food court. And then on the D-Infinity website, which is d-infinity, d-infinity.net, we've got new Mutant Future material going up every week. So if anyone wants to check this out, my point is it's cheap or free to do it. They can download a text-only version of the game for free from Goblinoid Games on DriveThruRPG. They can get free content to play with that game on my dinfinity.net website. So, if somebody wants to get the flavor of what you're talking about today, Jared, they don't have to buy that abomination and put up with it. They don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on eBay. They can actually get a retro clone version of the game and lots of free third-party publisher content for it.
Excellent.
I would also throw out Darwin's World. That is
your name?
Yeah. Now I believe. Actually, I'm looking at this, and I believe what I'm looking at is. I'm sorry. I was just trying to look up some stuff on my computer about Darwin's World. I think. There we go. Yes, there is a Darwin's World gazetteer that you can get for free, which is a PDF document that is 1.7 megabytes. Let me just see how many pages long this bad boy is. I remember it being fairly substantial. Yeah, okay, let's try this.
Darwin's World came out in the early aughts. It was based on the D20. Based on the D20, it's a D20 system, and there's some fairly. I have some. I don't have all their content, but I do have some of it. There was one module that they came out with, which I thought was great. Was Metal Gods. It was basically going to like some kind of.
I think I've got that.
Some kind of cybernetic installation and robots, and it was very Gamma World, because the game is kind of Gamma World-ish. It's just a different future. It's like.
But you can go to. I was going to say you can go to DriveThruRPG, and there's a gazetteer for Darwin's World. So if you want to like read what their campaign background and their world looks like, there's a great deal of material, and it's like a 40-page free document. You can just download from DriveThruRPG, and it was done by a company called RPG Objects, and the author is Dominic Covey. And again, very retro Gamma World, absolutely worth a look. If you're interested in sort of not hard sci-fi post-apocalypse. If you're looking for a post-apocalypse that looks like Gamma World or Thundar the Barbarian.
This is a future Darwin's World, and again, it's all this again. Like we're folks, we were talking about before we went on air about is Gamma World still relevant in this day and age of computer games and role-playing games? Absolutely. It's like you know what? Because why would there be 7 editions? Why would there? They keep trying. They keep trying to get it right. Again, the last edition. Well, I'll talk about that at length and what's bad about that another time.
Let's talk about why Gamma World is still relevant. And I think that
because they're still putting out editions. Number one,
and people are still copying it.
People are still copying it.
If there are retro clones, that means that people are yearning for the best that game had to offer.
Yeah, there's still retro clones.
They still love it.
People still want it. They still want that. They want that that style, that feel of the game. It might not be Gamma World per se, but it's that world setting.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And also, Scott had mentioned that it's there's like even like Fallout, for example.
Yeah, I pushed
influenced.
Fallout. I pushed Fallout at Mr. Wallace. I think I ran across it first, and I was like, "This is really close in a lot of ways to Gamma World, in that the mutations are, sort of. There's plenty of off-the-wall mutations. There's plenty of robots. It's a future with, Buck Rogers-y death rays and atomic-powered cars and battle armor and all that kind of and plasma guns. So it has it goes from a Mad Max feel to a boy and his dog to all the way to full-on Gamma with giant battle robots and mutant sidekicks and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
and certainly that seems to have held through all the way through Bethesda's use of the license for Gamma World. Bethesda's use of the license for Fallout. It really does feel like a retro future apocalypse.
Oh, yes.
Buck Rogers' world blew up.
Yeah, the 50s view of the future, which is kind of how the first edition kind of was. Black ray guns and things like that. So, yeah, it's still very relevant to this day. All the retro clones, all this. I mean, you can look up Gamma World on Google, and you'll come across so many different fan sites, so many different things that people put out. There was another version. It wasn't it was what the fuck was it called? It was
another clone.
It was a clone during the D20 era that did Robin Laws do it? I think it was Robin Laws. I can't remember.
That is not ringing a bell. But what you think?
It was Robin Laws. It was one of those guys in that crew that put out a version. Basically, I think it was around the same time that the Gamma World Sword and Sorcery came out, and it was
I'm looking it up right now. He's got Jack Vance on his bibliography, or his bibliography. He's got Jack Vance's Dying Earth role-playing game.
Which is really fantasy.
He did put out something. I can't remember what it was called.
Vance did, but it's
Raider.
Not. Dying Earth is supposed to be far-flung future, but it's a future that's so far-flung that magic has been reinvented. It is pretty much straight fantasy. The spell-casting system from D&D is actually directly based on descriptions of spell-casting in the Dying Earth books.
He did a little writing for the Underground RPG, but Underground is a dystopia. He also did that. He also did some work on Over the Edge, but that's also a dystopia. I'm not spotting anything out of his. Describe the system. What was it? What did you think it was?
It came out in. It was in a magazine. It came out in a magazine. It was it was during the D20 era. Omega World. It was called. Jonathan Tweet. It was Jonathan Tweet, not Robin Laws.
Okay.
I told you it was in that crew of guys. Omega World came out September of 2002. Dungeon Magazine in Polyhedron 153. It was very Gamma World. It was supposed to be very Gamma World like D20. It was before the White Wolf edition. So there you go. So there was that kind of that not official edition, but it was kind of a very Gamma Worldish type game. For the D20 system came out. So, so it's very, again, you look up Gamma World, you find all these fan sites. There's still that Yahoo Gamma World group, which is very active still to this day. It's been around for like 14 years. I even run a Gamma World page. I try to put, I post when I can, but a lot of people like it. So there's people out there who still like the game, love the game. You get the old grognards like us who like it, and you probably don't have as many newer folks as we'd like, but
just looking it up, Omega World has a small mention on the main Gamma World web page in Wikipedia, and it is written 2002. Tweet wrote it, came out in Dungeon 94, Polyhedron 153. Got the thumbs up from the old school Gamma World fans.
Yeah, so Gamma World, again, very relevant still. Again, they came out with the 7th edition, which again is 4th edition rules. I was actually at Gen Con when they were actually doing the
launch.
launch meeting of it, and I did actually get to ask the questions. And actually, it's on video me asking the question of why did you go? Because so people know, they didn't just go back. They took it. 7th edition is a joke. They took it from the stance that Gamma World is a joke. It's not serious.
Right.
The jokiest thing to me was, and it was like it stood out to everybody, was that combat was randomized to the point where it was like a fight between Yosemite Sam and Daffy Duck. Your character's abilities, your character's powers, your character's mutations,
right,
were randomly drawn as a hand of cards. Is that what they were? At the beginning
of in 1st edition, just to play devil's advocate here.
No. You randomly redeal those powers every combat round.
Oh!
Well, I don't know if it was every combat round, but basically...
How horrible. That's asinine.
Well,
but every combat round...
You have all these cards, and it's like your mutations will change from combat to combat. Your weapons will change from combat. It's kind of like how in the 4th edition, between combats, you're completely healed, and you're ready for the next combat.
Game.
What?
It's like an arena game. It's like an arena combat game.
That's it. And it's like everything's completely random.
That's not a role-playing game.
I don't think you can play a pure straight human in this game. It's all about I'm a Yeti cockroach.
But it's worse than that, because you're not a Yeti cockroach next time.
Yeah,
you have to redeal
everything. There's no character. Well, that's why they say that it's designed for, when you don't want to play your serious D&D. They said your serious D&D campaign. This is something
that's just too serious for you.
Yeah. If you want to play your serious D&D campaign, you can use this as a one-shot. Because it's not designed for long-term campaigns.
Because no one's going to want to play it twice. That's why it's a one-shot.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Just go ahead right there.
And when I was listening to these guys, they're talking about how they're fans of the game and the original and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I asked them, I go, then why did you design it completely goofball, wahoo, over the top?
And what'd they say?
The short answer was, and I respect him for saying this, because that's what we were told to do.
That's orders from corporate.
Orders from corporate. He was completely honest. And I think it was Keith Baker or Tom, I can't remember his name. I can't remember who it was. I actually wanted to have breakfast with him the next. I actually had breakfast with him the next day, and we talked about it. He was a nice guy.
After they spent a romantic night together.
Yeah, well,
Keith Baker's a real nice guy.
Yeah, he's a real nice guy. He says,
he's smart.
He's like, this is what I had to do. This is what they told me to do.
My paycheck said do this.
My paycheck said do this. That's why they went. But again, it's a steaming pile of garbage. It's awful. Everything's random. It's terrible. It's like, then they come out with the expansions, more maps. It's awful. I mean, some people are probably like, "Oh, I love it. It's great." You know what? Fuck you. Okay, it's a piece of crap. It's.
Jared, you're not on trial here. Just because you think it's a piece of crap doesn't mean that anyone's gonna think less of you. In fact, if you were in love with it, I would want to be checking you for lobotomy scars. But okay. It's a bad game.
Jared, something that struck me as an epiphany some time back was that we all know that you've got a certain class of fanboys in our industry, and what makes a fanboy cool is not anything he's ever done. What makes a fanboy cool is what he thinks of what other people have done. So a company like WotC will come out with something that's a steaming pile of crap, and a lot of people are going to say, it's so wonderful, it's so great. They've got to say that. They've got to say that to validate their own existence. So you don't, and that says something for you and Scott and me. But some people are not going to be critical. They're going to be uncritical of anything that comes out because they feel that that's what they have to do to validate themselves as a fan of the industry overall, and that's kind of pathetic. They're the same people that slam third-party and small publisher stuff.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I do like about the game, and I've talked to Mike about this kind of extensively, is the cards. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like the whole you got to buy all these cards to be collectible. You don't have the cards to be this special random mutation thing. I like the idea of cards because it's a throwback to, if you remember, D&D in the early '90s did like spell cards. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great way to organize.
I like it's because all I know is when I was playing D&D back in the 80s, when I was a spellcaster, I kept my fucking spells, each spell with all the vital stats, on a 3x5 card.
Yeah.
Because it helped keep you organized, or your cleric to pick your spells for the day. So if they came out with something for, like, say, the early edition stuff, like, here's a deck of the mutation cards. So instead of maybe even just randomly rolling them, you could randomly pick them. But those are your mutations. But you have it as a reference, so you don't have to write it down.
Yep.
Maybe it's in your hand. You can always, okay, what does that do again? Quick reference card. Or
and even better, if it's an exhausting power, once you've burned it for the day, you turn it over. You know, it helps you organize it.
So it's not bad for that, and even for artifacts, it's not bad, because it's like, you know what? If, say, a DM's like, hey, you know, I'm gonna have all these I'm gonna have these 5 particular artifacts.
We used to do it with magic items. We used to make our own 3x5 cards for our magic items just to keep them sorted. Exactly.
And you have it, so you don't have to write down. Here's
a device.
Here, it's a great resource device. Now, again, the way they use it is for everything's random and you get a collectible. But I think as having mutation cards, artifact cards is like a resource deck for managing your characters and your campaigns. I think that's a great idea. And I've actually talked to Mike about that. So it's like that. About you need to do that for your Mutant Future stuff. So.
That's a really good option, because God knows. Any game that involves the acquisition of toys and stuff, your character sheet becomes a bit cumbersome. How many sheets is it going to be of gear or personal possessions? But wait, which personal possessions did I take with me? Oh wait, I've got to make a whole new list. Of course, I'm talking from the analog days. Maybe it's just easier with a tablet. You just highlight the things you're going to use or whatever. But having a solid card to represent which gear is coming with you, it feels like a throwback in some ways to like how you'd organize your character in Talisman.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's some use for that. I think it's really useful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So last thing, one thing I did forget to mention is also Gamma World had back in the early days, late '70s, Grenadier Miniatures.
Oh yeah.
Put out miniatures for Gamma World. Now
this the original blister pack. Oh my God.
Okay. All right. There were 52. I don't know if you can see the back. There were 52 miniature blister packs put out back in the late '70s. I myself own 23 or 4 of these on cards. Okay. This is how dedicated I am to the game. Okay. I've spent a lot of money and time collecting those miniatures, okay? Will I ever have all 52? I highly doubt it. The fact that I even have almost half of them, I think is an amazing damn feat, okay?
What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to scan the obituary sections for grognards.
Yeah, now's the time, because they're all starting to get a little old, so...
Yep, I had an appendix out, so clearly our health is failing.
Yeah.
So now is the time to swoop in on some guy who, had a beard, a bald head, and suspenders.
There you go.
Some guy who's a Unix programmer.
There you go.
Probably a Unix programmer. Hey, kid, here's a quarter. Go buy yourself an operating system,
So that's Gamma World in a nutshell. Again, one of my favorite games. A lot of additions. There's a lot to it. This, again, like I said, still relevant nowadays. There's a lot of retro clones, like Mike had mentioned, so you could get the flavor and feel of it from the Mutant Future. Because, again, some of these games, some of this stuff still, like I've been trying to get a new copy of my 4th edition. Because
in the future, Mr. Wallace, I highly recommend we take some time and actually go through the Gamma World modules. And give people a rundown of the fucking towering insanity and wackadoodle that can be found in the ruins of Pittsburgh,
or Legion of Gold, or Famine
Legion
of Fargo.
of Gold, yeah, exactly.
Or Famine of Fargo, the chicken farm. Okay.
Yes, giant mutant cyclops chickens. Now, who can say no to that?
What's not to love?
Yeah. Exactly. I love it. Actually, again, one last thing, real quick, I'll add to that is the guy who did the original art for. I'm pulling my module up here. Hold on.
Famine in Fargo.
Famine in Fargo.
That's the guy who did all the work for Paranoia.
Yes, he did a lot of work for Paranoia.
And I gotta tell you, I've always suspected that Paranoia was just one corner of Gamma World.
Yes, that is a very, very good analogy. Okay, I
I would love to have my player characters with their mutant bear and their, cactus horse find the city and encounter the computer. Who's your friend?
All right, I can't find it, but
are you looking for the Famine in
Fargo? Famine in Fargo. The artwork, the cover was done by Jim Holloway. Again, one of these old school guys, like Jeff D. Okay, here's Famine in Fargo. Okay,
that what you're looking for?
Let me back it up.
So what are you looking for in it?
Yes, that is. You're too close. Back it up. Back. Very good. Okay, that right there. That
good image.
That is a quintessential Gam World. That screams Gam World right there.
Yeah,
okay?
it does.
Now I've emailed Jim Holloway's. He has a handler who filters his stuff. Says that because Jim has kind of redone, like a lot of folks now, like Jeff D is actively doing. They're like redoing their old art because a lot of it's disappeared from the TSR days. Jim Holloway, who did this cover, is. I asked him. He says he plans to redo that piece and also sell them as prints. So I've been emailing the guy. He says, well, bug me every once in a while. So every 3 to 6 months, I send him an email. But Jim's very busy, with regular work, like doing for miniatures. And he says it's on the back burner. But eventually, he's going to supposedly redo that cover and do prints of that. I am foaming at the mouth waiting for this. I would love to have that. If he doesn't get around to it soon, I might just go, how much is it to commission it? Okay, I'll take an original piece. I don't care.
Okay, let me just point something out. I cracked open Famine in Fargo just to sort of see if I could find where it gave the credit for that artist. Was it Jim Holloway?
It's Jim Holloway, right?
Okay, so I'm looking for that, and then suddenly I realize I'm paging through it. And I'm like, huh. They're not listing the artists in the credits. There just says, designed by TSR. I mean, they give the author's name, and I'm not seeing. But then suddenly I notice that some of the illustrations have names on them, and holy shit, some of the illustrations are by Tim Truman, who did Scout and Tecumseh and some of these post-apocalyptic comic books we were mentioning last week. Tim Truman used to work, Jesus, I guess he was one of these guys in the middle of the 90s that was working for some of these independent publishers. And yeah, the comic book Scout that we mentioned was one of them. But holy crap, here he is in the misty dawn of time in 82, doing illustrations for TSR. I'm kind of blown away by that.
Nice.
So
hopefully he'll do that, and then I could get my grubby paws on it, and I could put it up on the wall next to my Gam World is here poster. So I've also mentioned to Jeff D. It's like, are you gonna redo your Gam World stuff? He's like, don't worry, there's a lot for me to do. So hopefully he'll get around to doing the Gam World stuff.
He's gonna redo everything because he goes from one Kickstarter of redoing his original art to the next. So if he hasn't done it yet, he is most assuredly going to.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. And like I said, like we talked about, when eventually we do a trip out to Houston, to visit you, we're gonna do a gaming tour and see, because a lot of these guys are in Texas. Jeff's in Texas.
A lot of them are. He's in Texas. Diesel is in Texas.
Diesel's in Texas. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I want to see these.
Steve Jackson games, of course. Austin. A lot of people are right in the Austin area. They're within like a 50-mile radius of where I'm sitting right now.
So yes, Austin, the West Berlin of Texas.
So I want to, get out there so I can be a raving fanboy. Oh, do you Gam World art for me? Do you Gam World art for me? So anyway, so yes, I'm completely and totally obsessed with Gam World. Again, it's a far-reaching game, like I said before. A lot of additions. We'll go deeper into some different Gam World stuff, down the road. So. All right, like I said, I'm going to stop us here because
we hit an hour about 5 minutes ago.
Okay, no problem. So okay, fine, then no problem. But like I said, I think I said at the beginning of the podcast, the first episode, I will talk a lot about Gam World. I could talk about it for hours and not stop. So we're going to force a stop on me. So again, great conversation, guys. Thank you, Mike, for joining us. I appreciate it. Because I like throwing in, some other people once in a while just to kind of add to the mix.
And games are what I do. So.
And games are what you do. So it's very relevant that you're here and you do the retro clone stuff. So I thought it was, good to have you on.
Glad to pitch in, always.
So again, I don't really got any, no closing words for me except for.
No, we're out of here. We are done.
No closing words. Play Gamma World. You know what I'm going to say about social media. If you haven't done it yet, you ain't going to do it. So, whatever. It's like, I can't tell you anymore. So
just keep living in your damn cave, all right?
Live in your damn cave. Yeah. So, again,
enjoy your yurt.
So, again, Michael, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Sir.
Scott,
good being on with both of you.
Thank you. Again, Scott and me, we are going to say goodnight. So, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. What are we going to talk about next time?
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll figure it out and we'll let you know. So again,
you people may be the first to know. You may know what the subject is before we do.
Exactly. So
because that's never happened.
No, we haven't done that. We've never done anything on the fly. So all right. So good night, folks. I don't know. That's it. Good night.
Go away.
Go
away. That's what you do.
And remember, as always, Domars are stupid. Good night, folks.
Come on, Mike. You're supposed to say that with us.
Do it again. Do it again.
And remember, folks.
It's
Domars
are stupid.
All right. One more time. All right. So you have it now. And always remember, folks. Domars are stupid.
Wow, we're terrible at this.
We really are. We're like
you think I'd have more rhythm for an ex-Catholic.
All right. Good night, folks. Goodbye.